comparisons are kind of the bedrock of sports talk. So I'm never going to get mad at them or get tired of talking about them. I mean, I think LeBron James and Michael Jordan will probably be debated for the rest of eternity. In the women's basketball world, it's now everybody who's next with Caitlin Clark. And trust me, it would be great for women's hoops and for the media industry if Paige Bueckers and Juju Watkins can be in the class of Caitlin Clark. But I often go back to the fact that it's a high bar to reach. These aren't just things you can speak into existence. And, with Paige specifically, she just got the Nike deal. She's very marketable. That is for sure. She's going to be the number one pick in the WNBA draft. But sometimes I feel like people move the goalposts a little bit when it comes to Caitlin, where, she doesn't have a national championship and that's held against her, but you don't hear that with the others. Or she already proved herself in the WNBA and you don't hear these doubts about others and what they might do in the WNBA. So basically, all I'm saying is I would love to be able to debate Caitlin Clark against Paige Bueckers and then eventually Juju Watkins. But when it comes to what's actually taken place on the court, that's a long ways away. So the reason I bring this up is because Elle Duncan talked about it on her podcast. And it was a long segment basically asking whether it was fair to compare Paige Bueckers to Caitlin Clark. And let me play it for you, pieces of it. Taking all the emotion or allegiances out, I just want to go through bits of it and be fair here. But this was the start of it.
If you're watching,
yep,
here's the picture of the shoe. I think it looks fire. I love the color splay.
It's clean.
It's very clean. And the question immediately sort of became like, what does this mean for Caitlin? Like the fact that Paige Bueckers has a shoe coming out before her announced shoe, and what is this? And I just got to say, they don't mean anything.
So the question didn't first become that. That's not really true. That's just what some people said on social media. Some Caitlin Clark fans, obviously, what they said on social media. And trust me, I'm guilty of that too. Taking the social media reaction and turning into segments. It's now a thing. But just because a few people said that online doesn't mean that's where the conversation actually went around Paige Bueckers and her shoe deal. Now that the segment continued, and she talked about Paige and Paige's career sort of being derailed by injuries at one point, which of course is true.
To talk about her for this article. And I think they both have handled it in such an incredible way. The attention, the adversity. There's been more adversity for Paige than there has been for Caitlin, just in terms of trying to stay on the court. I mean, Paige has been hampered with devastating injuries. I firmly believe that the biggest star on the planet would be Paige Bueckers if she had stayed healthy throughout her college run instead of.
So I hear that a lot too. The biggest star on the planet with Paige was Paige before Caitlin Clark. We've seen that. And by the way, it seems to be a one-way street when you're talking about fans. Like when Caitlin Clark fans take umbrage with something, there is an issue. But when it's the other way around, and again, like I played the TikTok in a video last week, when the TikTok, says she was Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark, and the refs wanted Caitlin Clark to win. Nobody takes issue with that side of it, right? And there does seem to be an effort by some who just aren't comfortable with Caitlin Clark being the face for whatever reason, whether it's, she didn't come from the traditional mold of UConn or whatever, whether it's, the amount of attention she's gotten. I don't know. Obviously, there's been black and white discussions and whatnot, but that doesn't apply with Paige Bueckers. But there does seem to be like this resistance to embracing Caitlin Clark as the face, and that's part of the propping up of other players who are tremendous in their own right. Because, when I do segments, and by the way, when I do segments on Paige or Juju, I'm going to do plenty that are just about them. The reason I'm obviously drawing the comparison here is because of the subject matter being discussed. Here is some more from that piece where Elle Duncan says that she believes there won't be another season like the one we just saw.
I think it's the team that she played for. I don't think we'll ever see a season like we saw last year, just in terms of the impact, the new viewership that was there for her. Like, I don't think we're ever going to see that. And I don't think that Paige winning a national championship this year would change that or even contend with it. And that's just the truth of it. Because to your point, Iowa, it was improbable that they would have been in 2 straight finals, right? UConn is expected. And it's expected, especially if healthy, especially if given Gino Auriemma, that they would be able to finally get this championship. Although, let's be honest, I mean, it's been since 2016, which by UConn standards is a significant
drought.
That is a significant title drought.
So if Caitlin Clark was on UConn and didn't win a national championship, what would people be saying right now? They're saying it about Iowa, right? They're saying it about Iowa. And then there was one other bit from the podcast, and I'll put the full link in the description if I'm going to use that much of their material. You should check out the full piece for yourself. But here is the last bit that I took a little issue with.
Says Steph Curry is their favorite player. For me, with Paige and Caitlin, and the difference in whether you think one is a better player than other is really just comes down to your taste preference and what you like in a player. And I like when someone says Steph Curry is their favorite player more so than a LeBron. I can 100% understand why they make that argument. I don't think it takes away from either one of them, but they're different players. And Steph and Caitlin are much more similar. And I would say that Paige and LeBron are much more similar in terms of efficiency, the defensive part of it, right? Like the well-roundedness of the game, but that doesn't take away from the legacy player that Steph is. And I think similarly, what Steph was able to do, which is what Caitlin's been able to do for a lot of young girls, is they see themselves in her. You don't have to be 6'8". You don't have to look, Caitlin's as athletic as they come, but you don't have to look necessarily the part, right? Like all these kids grew up thinking, well, I could be an NBA player if I could shoot deep threes, right? Because Steph did, because he doesn't have the prototypical body, because he's this, because he seems like a reg. And I think that she's been able to do that as well. Paige is a little bit more of like a LeBron in my mind in terms of just getting the full package, defensive efficiency, her ability to dish, which we already know, Caitlin is supreme at, but I just think it's more of the well-rounded package. Anyway.
So I don't disagree completely with some of that. Caitlin Clark, yes, is relatable. A lot of people find her relatable in that sense. Same thing with Steph. And they are the 2 biggest ratings drivers in basketball. However, why is Paige not relatable? Is there anything physically dominant about, she's not like LeBron in that sense. And I actually think, I've drawn comparisons with Clark and LeBron because of all-around impact. Maybe not on the defensive end, but is Paige such a defensive stalwart compared to Caitlin? I guess that's what I don't get. What makes her more well-rounded? Because Caitlin's a better passer than Paige. So that doesn't jive. She scores more. She, at the WNBA level, had a lot of rebounds and blocks and steals. I mean, I'm not saying Paige isn't a better defender. I mean, you can argue Paige is a better defender, I suppose. I mean, I want to see it at the pro level, but it's not like, Paige is no one has come in and gone, you know what? Paige Bueckers is the most dominant defensive player I've ever seen. That's not what they're leading with. So it just feels like another roundabout way to give someone the edge over Caitlin Clark. And if Paige, again, I would love nothing more than for Paige Bueckers to be as good as or better than Caitlin Clark, or arguably as good as Caitlin Clark. Same thing goes for Juju Watkins. That would give me more content. That would activate the basketball fan in me. But I don't have a problem with the comparisons. The comparisons are good for the sport. However, so far, until proven otherwise, they're going to fall short.